Hi there. Welcome to Christmas at the Schwowin's Nest. My name is Sandra, and I'm so glad you're here. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, I'd love it if you could hit that red button. Let me show you how to DIY your own vintage Christmas for under $5. My first project is using some gorgeous vintage graphics that I got from Creative Fabrica, and I will have the links to both of these designs down in my description box. And I'm going to be using water slide paper. I haven't used water slide paper in a really long time, and I thought, you know what, for this project, it's perfect. So I've gone ahead and printed my images onto the water slide paper. I've sealed it in 3 times with some clear matte spray. I like to use Rust-Oleum brand. And now I am ready to immerse these in water and put them on my mugs. I have a large tray here filled with some lukewarm water, and I'm going to just put my water slide paper right in it. It does tend to curl up, but you can just hold it down and eventually it will flatten out again. You're going to leave this in for about 30 to 45 seconds, and the way you know it's ready is when you can push a little bit on the edge of the paper and the decal starts to come off. I got this pair of mugs at the Dollar Tree, and I like these because they're straight-sided and they have that lip on the top. I'm just taking some water on a rag and making the mug just a little bit damp. This is going to give me the ability to move the decal around until I have it in the right spot. Now I've attached the decal portion that I slid off the paper onto the mug. And holding that with my fingers, I'm going to very gently pull on the paper so it starts to slide out from underneath the decal. You can see that happening here. I'm going to go really slow and just make sure that I can move my decal into the proper position and make sure that it is straight all the way around. When I get to the end of the decal, I realized that I was about a half an inch too long, so I would definitely need to trim this or crop it when I create my images, which is something that I'm going to show you when I'm done this project. I just folded the decal paper back just a little bit and then took my large scissors and very carefully trimmed off the excess. I'm going to continue using the same rag, but you could also use some tissue or a paper towel. And what I need to do is very gently go over the decal and push out any of the water bubbles to the edge. And this is going to smooth out all of the decal. I can still wiggle it around a little bit if I need to until the water is completely out. Then once I've got all the bubbles off of it, I'm going to let it dry for a good 24 hours. Then I'll be sealing it with a layer of Mod Podge. I did the exact same thing for the second mug using the reindeer design. Again, this will also be linked down in my description box so you can get the exact same graphics. The mugs can be used for drinking out of. You just have to be careful when you're washing them, just with a little bit of warm soap and water. I will probably use these as decorative mugs for the Christmas season, probably in my kitchen with a bottle brush tree in them or something. And I think they'd be beautiful gifts for people as well. And using the water slide, just imagine how many different designs you can put on mugs like this. I got this frame at the thrift store for $1.99. And the reason I got it is because look at how thick and wide that frame is underneath. I'm going to use a screwdriver and some staple remover tools to take out all of the staples, but I'm not going to use this canvas. I love the color of the inside of the canvas. It's sort of like a beigey drop cloth color. So I'm going to save that for a different project and do something different with this frame. I'm measuring the inside of the frame, and then I'm going to just go to my computer and adjust my graphic to fit right in there, minus about a half an inch, simply because I would like to have a little bit of a white border around it. Lately, I have really enjoyed using rice paper to print my decoupage designs onto. It's a little bit thicker than tissue paper and it doesn't get jammed in your printer as easily as the tissue paper. So I have the link for this one in my Amazon storefront. I'll also have the link down in my description box for you so you can get to it easily. You get a bunch of different sheets and this is going to last forever. I'm going to take a piece of printer paper and I'm using some painter's tape and I'm going to tape down the rice paper right on top of the printer paper, making sure that it's nice and smooth all the way across. So what I like to do is take my fingers and just kind of brush them across the paper. And then I'm going to pick this up and I'm going to just fold over the tape on the other side. That's going to give your printer a little bit something more substantial to grip onto, and you would have less jamming that way. Since I don't have a backing for the frame, I'm just going to cut out a piece of foam core board. I printed out a really vintage looking cabin design, and this is available on my Etsy shop as a group of 20, I believe, pages of different graphic designs that I've created. So if you're interested in that, you can take a look at my Etsy shop and see what else I have to offer there. I'm going to be using a glue stick just to apply the rice paper photo right on top of the foam core board. The other thing that I'm going to do is just use my Mod Podge brayer here, and that's just going to make sure that the rice paper has good adhesion to the foam core board. I trimmed off the excess rice paper just using my scissors because if you don't have a sharp enough blade on your X-Acto knife, it can tear the paper, and I didn't want that to happen. So I just took the foam core board now and I pushed it into the frame. I'm going to make sure that it's in there really snugly, but I am going to add some hot glue to the back of the frame and make sure that it stays put. You could still see the cuts from the foam core board. So to camouflage that, I'm just taking some of this sort of beige twine and I'm going to just hot glue it right around the edge of the frame, and that's just going to finish it off nicely. For a final touch, I'm going to be adding 2 pine cones, and I'm going to add a little bit of a little smaller one at the top, add a few pip berries, and this is going to look beautiful in a display, on a shelf, on a table, on the wall. It's absolutely gorgeous, and I love it. I haven't done any pine cone crafts yet this year, and I love using this rustic piece of natural material to create some beautiful decor. Today, I'm going to be making some little ornament hangers or door hangers. You can basically hang these wherever you want. If you made a whole bunch of them, I'm just going to be making 3 today, and they're sort of going to coordinate a little bit together. For this first one, I'm going to take some twine and some various ribbons and make myself a messy bow. I like to lay a piece of twine vertically and then just put all of my pieces on top, tie it up real tight, and then I'll just glue this right on top of the pine cone. Then I added a large red berry and a couple of bottle brush trees right to the back of the hanger. I thought this was just a really fun and quirky idea. Using the paint that I had still on my brush from painting the jingle bells, I just hit the edges of the pine cone to make it look like there was some snow on the edges. And then I went ahead and I created a couple more different sizes, different styles, some berries, some trees, some bows. Basically, whatever you feel like creating, you can make tons of these to hang around your home for the holiday season. For For this project, I'm going to make a little decorative pillow that you can use to display on a bench or in a basket or on a wall, whatever suits your decor. The first thing I'm doing is just cutting 3 pieces of this ticking stripe fabric. It's gray and white, and I'm going to make sure that they're all the same size. I had some flour sack cloth that I'm going to be using to create the outside of the pillow. I'm just using my little mini heat press here just to press it and make sure that I don't have too many wrinkles in it. I've got 2 pieces here that are the same size, and I tore the edges so it would be nice and rustic. I laid them across the fabric, and I'm going to be just gluing them on and creating little pockets. So I'll be gluing the sides and the bottom, but not the top. Once I've got them all glued, then you can see where I've got my little pocket here with my finger. I've laid both pieces of fabric together now, and it really doesn't matter if you have them back to back or front to front. This is the front of it, so the back doesn't really matter. What I'm doing is gluing the 2 pieces together to form a pillow pocket. And I am just using the glue about a half an inch in from the edge, as you see me doing here, because I want it to have a really homemade look. I don't have much of a stash of buttons, so I had these star pieces left over from a different project, and I'm just using my drill with a small drill bit to drill in some holes to make these look like buttons. Then I'm going to take some of the red and white twine that I have, and I'm going to feed it through the buttons and just tie it in the back so it looks like it's been threaded onto the pillow. Once it was tied, I added a dot of hot glue just to make sure that the knot wouldn't come undone. I slid a few fingers inside of the pocket, and I'm adding some hot glue to the center of the pocket. And this is where I'm going to add the stars. They're going to look just like buttons on each of the pocket. If you don't want to use your fingers, you can definitely put a little bit of wax paper or parchment paper, something that doesn't have a sticky backing to it if you don't want to use your fingers, because yes, the hot glue did get a little warm for me. I don't have any pillow stuffing right now, so I decided to just use a few pieces of this fleece blanket that I've been using for crafts and just make more of a flat pillow. Again, this is not going to be something that you're going to use. It's just for decorative purposes, so I didn't think it needed to be that stuffed. However, if you want a nice full stuffed pillow, by all means, fill it up. I used the same gluing technique as I did around the other 3 edges, just going in about a half an inch and then pressing the 2 pieces together. You can use whatever you want inside these little pockets. You can even just leave them not glued in so you can replace them with different things. I could see this being a year-round little pillow embellishment too, but for me, I'm taking some of these tiny little bottle brush trees and I've flattened out the back, and I'm going to actually glue it right into the pocket so the little tree is kind of sticking out. And I just thought this was the cutest little idea. I think it's so fun. Definitely, you're not going to want to put your head on this pillow because those trees are a little prickly, but this turned out really sweet. To finish off the look of this pillow and make it look more complete, I'm using some of the red and white twine that I used on the buttons, and I'm going to hot glue a trim piece all around the edge where I glued the 2 pieces together. This is such an adorable little project, and I could see this being adapted for all sorts of seasons. I hope you love this one as much as I do. My first project is going to be using this vintage designed newspaper print that I found on Creative Fabrica. I'll have my link available for you down in the description box, and I'll tell you what you've got to search for. So this was really fun to use. I decided to print these off on rice paper, and now I'm just going to tear them into strips because I want to decoupage this onto my ornament. I'm going to use Mod Podge to apply the paper to my ornament, and I'm going to use a fairly thick amount because the rice paper is a little bit thicker than regular decoupage paper or tissue paper, and my ornament is pretty slick, so I want to make sure that it sticks well. I haven't sealed this rice paper, so if any wetness comes on the top of it, it will run a little bit. So if you want to seal it yours with some hairspray or maybe just even a little bit of a clear spray sealer that you might have, that would work fine. Of course, going to get wrinkles because we're putting a flat piece of paper onto a round object, but I'm okay with that because this is a vintage look and this is what I liked. The other thing is if you get any glue on your fingers and you start touching the paper where your glue on your finger is, you're going to start pulling that paper off. So you have to be just really careful how you do this. Just take your time and make sure that everything has a little bit of Mod Podge on it so it will stay down. Once I got to some of the smaller sections towards the end, I ended up just tearing my pieces of paper down a little bit smaller so they would fit and I wouldn't have too much overlapping. I didn't want this to turn out thick, so I just made sure that I trimmed where I needed to. I didn't do a lot of these ornaments. I think I only did 3 in this size, but I really love how they turned out. Now I'm going to show you what my tree looks like with all of these vintage ornaments on it at the end. So stay tuned. I found these white jingle bells in a pack of 12 at my local dollar store. It was some type of craft necklace thing, but what I'm going to do is create some rusty jingle bells out of these. Now I'm using my honey brown paint, which is from Americana Paints. I love this color. You could also do this in a jar. Just put your paint in and your jingle bells in, close the top of the jar, shake them up. You want to get them somewhat covered, but they don't have to be completely covered. I'm using my Cricut weeding tool just to get these onto some skewers without actually touching them and then wiping off some of the paint. It's a little bit tricky, but it can be done. Now that they're dry, I'm going to put them back in the bowl and add some burnt umber paint. This was a little too much for my first one. You don't want to add that much because you want some of that orange to peek through as well. And these ones ended up being completely covered in brown. What I do next is a little different than what I've seen other creators do. I know a lot of people use cinnamon to create that rusty kind of textured look, but I am using paprika and it just really gives it a much deeper color, a more of an orange and realistic rust looking. And when you jiggle it around in the bowl again, it actually lends a little bit more texture to the jingle bells as well, giving it all in all a better rustic look. This is the inspiration that is for my next project. It is a Christmas ornament, a little frame, $93. OMG. Are you kidding me? I don't care who painted that, who the artist is. There's no way you need to spend $93 on a Christmas ornament. What you see me doing here is adding some tape to a piece of rice paper, and I'm taping it to just a regular piece of printer paper. I'm going to then run that through my printer with this cute little graphic that I got off of Creative Fabrica. I'm using one of these small plastic frames that come from the Dollar Tree, and they do look like they're a wood grain. Now I'm just going to cut out my little snowman guy, and I sized him to the size of the frame that it needs to go in. I'm also going to use the paper on the back just to give it a little bit more substance. So I'll just make sure that it fits and simply just put the backing right into the frame. I'm using some burnt umber and one of my little chip brushes to dry brush onto the frame. I want that faux wood grain to peek through, but I want the frame to be a little bit darker like the inspiration. This turned out so stinking cute. I didn't put a hanger on it because I think this will be a little too big for my tree, but I think it looks beautiful just standing on the shelf. Thank you so much for spending some of your time with me today. I truly appreciate it. See you in the next one.